So it costs us at least 300 on formula alone per baby every day. There have been months when we have very many little babies where our cost of formula alone is $500,000 and above.
We'll talk about
your journey about that.
Yes, okay. I feel like that's a conversation that we need to have. So, in your life, you have children from 0.
Yes.
All these different ages, all the way until?
So most of our children are between, like the little one who came yesterday is just 3 days old. And sometimes you'll get a baby a few hours old. So would have children, like in Nairobi, our oldest child in Nairobi is 10, but is only one who's 10, and then the next little one is 4. The others are below 4. Okay? Now the 10-year-old was born deaf. Came to us as a newborn. And one of the things, I'd never heard of a cochlear implant. And one little girl came from the university in the US and told me, oh, there's a procedure where my cousin got an implant and she hears and she's in uni even now. So when we looked at it, it was so expensive. And at that time, you couldn't do it in Kenya. And I thought, no, I will do this. This little girl went and rallied her family, rallied the community in Indiana. They went to a hospital that does this, got the hospital in, and they told us the only thing we need to do is to bring this child to the US. So we had to go to court, get somebody to accompany this child. Went in there, that procedure was done. So they implant something inside, and then there's an external transmitter.
Yeah.
If you remove the external transmitter, it's like a little headpiece. If you remove it, his world is deaf. But once it connects, his world goes into sound. And so when he came back, I thought, oh, now he can hear. So we're all excited. Then we were told, no, sound means nothing to him. It's like a newborn. The journey begins now.
I have to teach him.
Now there's a lot, what is called mapping. So that gadget is like a frequency that is off. It's just, so they're always mapping it to get the right frequency, so to say. Then speech therapy, teaching him. And I thought, how are we going to do this? I was so overwhelmed. And I thought, is there a support group? As I was thinking that and asking, our founder was then, they had retired, but they were still here, told me there's a lady in Mamlaka Chapel whose kids have a device. And I don't know if it's a hearing aid. So I asked, could you ask her to connect with me? I didn't know who she was talking about. Only for her to come 2 weeks later and says, the lady says she knows you, and her name is Jackie. So Jackie came in the next Monday. She told me, my 2 kids were born deaf. So they have cochlear implants on both ears. And she listened to the story. She was a new widow. She was going through a lot. But she came back and told me, God has said, I need to do something. You guys will not handle this child. It is so intense, and if you miss the window, that hearing aid is useless. So she says, if you can help me get an extra help at home, and then you take care of the speech therapy sessions, I'll take this child into my family.
What?
So she had her own 2, and another child, her own child, and now she took Daniel. And lived with him for several years. She was unwell, and things were just when she was now making the transition, and one day she called me and told me, Janet, this is my child. He's never going to come back. And she was now making the transition to adoption. So she was fostering him. Jackie passed away. And that was such a bummer, because now her family, and I understood completely, the brother who was to take care of the children already had, I think, 3 of his own. And now there were 3 of Jackie's plus Daniel. And he didn't have just the hearing challenges. He also has ADHD issues. And so it was quite complex. And I remember we sat and I told him, I understand. We understand you're not a bad person. You guys are not just, and that's the difference I say between foster and adoption.
Yes.
If that child had been adopted, you figure it. You can't bring him back. But you see, in foster, we are still the legal guardians. But it's been a beautiful story because we've continued to partner with the family. They take care of all his education needs and all. And that's why he's the outlier in Nairobi as a 10-year-old. So I still pray we can get a family that will adopt Daniel. He goes to a school, he's very good with his computer and things.
Is he speaking, has that improved?
Yes, that has improved. But for him, I guess it's taken longer.
Yes.
Then the 4-year-old guy also is deaf. And we kept being told, oh, move him to another home. And I thought, again, there are some homes who will never do what we are saying. For me, it's personal. If this was my child, I'd make sure he hears. And this other little guy has no extra challenges. And I thought if we move him to another children's home, he'll end up either not hearing, he'll end up in a special school that maybe, and I just thought, let's try again. So checking in, we found Kenya is actually doing the cochlear implants at Nairobi Hospital. So we started checking in with friends, and again, through this one, we now raise through friends in the US. And we're able to raise that implant, one implant is 3 million. We've not started talking about speech therapy. And that's 1 year, 3M. And I knew if we don't do this for this child, and he moves and moves, he may never hear. But if it was my baby, I would fight for him to get this thing. So last month, we were able to have the surgery done. There's some doctors also who come in. So it was done. So he has the implant in 1 year. And Daniel goes to a school where, because it was Jackie's school, there are many kids who have the implants. So it's not a strange thing. We go to some places, sometimes in church, we'll see other kids want to pull it. But so we've just done it on the second little guy who's 4. And I'm very confident that once we sort this, he'll find a family. Even if it's 1 year and he's able to hear and now we start the speech, he'll find a family. So those are some of the things that set New Life apart, because for us, we are so feared. We are fierce about the care, and we fight for the children to have what our own children would have. But then there are people, and it's very strange. We once had a baby who had, we didn't know she had cancer in the eye. If you looked at her, she was okay. So we had just placed her for adoption, and they had started the process. We had never seen it, and the mother had never seen it, even when she stayed with the baby. But a visiting relative just one day said, there's something that flips like a light in her eye when at a certain angle. Fast forward, we found it was aggressive cancer.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting with that mother in my office, because she had not finalized the adoption. But I remember she said, Janet, if I had given birth to this child, who would I be giving her back to? She said, God gave me this child, and cancer or not cancer, this is my child, we will figure this out. And so we went, checked with the doctors, and we were told the best in Kenya, in Nairobi. And they told us, this surgery, if you did it locally, this child, one, will lose that eye. And the radiotherapy is not direct, it's general. Even you'll see her face will be deformed. But there are 2 or 3 hospitals that did it and out of the country. And this lady decided, we are doing this thing. It's amazing how God started raising people.
Wow.
It was the one and only time I put a campaign on social media. Aki, the backlash we got within 24 hours. Backlash. There were guys giving. A few people started giving and quietly, even some prominent names started. But the idol backlash, now I call it idol. I feel social media is just many people who you cowardly hide behind a pseudonym. But if you're using your own name, you would not say some of those things you are saying. Look at this home. Look how they pamper their children. Why can't they go to Kenyatta? Now raising money to go to back. Terrible. I said I'd never put it really shook me. Even in professional circles. And I remember the doctor calling me and telling me, Janet, I'm just in a group And people didn't know who the attending doctor was. And these are medics. And they were saying, look at this. This is very bad. This can be done. And he told them, guys, if any of you, I'm the attending doctor, and I know this is the condition. Nobody has asked. If it was your child, all of you would have been on the next flight. So the mother stuck in, and we went through, the adoption went through. It was an amazing journey. Me, I don't know who used to call us. Sometimes I'd get a call. Have you got, and I never knew. Sometimes I think it was State House, I don't know. But we'd get a call. So where are you guys at? And we could never call to that number. Okay, now you need to go to the registrar. They've been told to help you. So we go there and we find somebody is waiting. Now God just started raising people. Long story short, she went for that surgery. It took several years back and forth, but she's been in remission. And not only did they save the life, which was what we were very worried about. The doctor here said, this is actually, we could lose this child's life. They saved her life. They saved the eye.
They saved the eye?
And they saved her vision.
What?
So if you look at her, she has a slight squint, but...
And she's adopted?
The mother decided, this is my baby. Divine assignment, what am I saying? And if you see them, they look alike. So she should now be about 8 and just an amazing child. So for us, we are unapologetic. Because for me, I feel these kids did not deserve the harsh start they had in life. So why should they come into our home, our children's home, now to suffer more? And I don't know how these kids do it, but some of these two turtles are fighters. Can you imagine being thrown in a pit latrine? It is horrific to see. I had never seen a child from a pit latrine until last year. It's horrific.
You know.
Yet those kids fight and fight. And I always say there's a very special thing or assignment God has for these children. For you to have come out of some of those situations, there's something God wants to do in this life of this child. So we are grateful for the great honor to take care of the children. People think it's a money-making industry. People think adoptions, we are there for money. But we don't. We actually don't make a shilling as New Life from adoptions. We don't. People think adoptions are very expensive, and so they will do the side thing. Actually, it's not. And I'll tell Kenyans, if you're there and you want to adopt, the first step is to go to an adoption agency. You'll be asked to a tune of about 15,000. And part of that eventually is supposed to come to the home. But even the agencies are not breaking even. So we don't even bother them because...
15,000 is the whole cost?
No, okay. That is the initial cost.
Okay, the initial cost, yeah.
The second cost, the second and only other cost is your legal fees. Now that's to a lawyer.
Yep. Now
a lawyer, me only says like a tailor. I could take my fabric to my Fundi Tom in Kenyatta Market, 2K. I can take my fabric to some good friends of mine, I'll not name, but industry shakers. I'll pay 20K for the same thing, or 30K. And the same thing with lawyers. But I think as a whole, from what I've gathered in the different meetings we have, anything between 40K to a lawyer or so. So if you do the 15 plus this, so around 60,000 or up, if you depending on your lawyer, that's the whole amount you should be looking at.
But it's just the lawyer fees and the 15,000 that goes.
That is all. You should. No children's home should ask you for money. No children's department person should ask you for money. Those are the only two legal fees that you're supposed to pay.
Wow.
Okay, but people think it costs hundreds of
thousands. Like, to be honest, I thought adoption costs like 250K.
No.
So that's already one myth that
if you want
really
your lawyer
missed.
to get 200 something, that's fine. So,
okay, yeah. I want us to take a break here. When we come back, I want to hear, now you have somebody you've adopted.
Yes.
Part of the reason why I wanted you to come to this platform, I've had many people who've come to CTA who've adopted, but because I respect what they talk about, I can't force them to talk about it. However, I understand. Maybe they want to integrate the children, and they don't want society to speak to know, and I understand where they're coming from. but I'd like to hear your adoption story. And then also, as you've been talking, one of the things that I've cognizantly done or intentionally done is put the details. The details on how, in case somebody's got this. I love the way when you've spoken, because you've talked about the different ways in which people can support. Anywhere as simple as bring your spoons. The spoons that you're not using in your house, those wedding gifts that you've never opened, all the way to bring your old clothes, all the way to give us in terms of donation of money, anything from 1 shilling all the way to there's no end limit. But I've also put your contact details in the contact details are in the description. Contact details are also currently on the screen right now, in case they want to get directly in touch with you. Yeah.
You know, and you know, many people assume, like I said, that we make a lot of money. People don't know. The little babies coming, the only thing you can feed them is formula.
I've had
1 tin of formula for us at very discounted, not quite discounted, but wholesale rate, it's 1,200.
It's now 1,200?
No, formula is over 2,000 in many places.
Wow, wow, wow. My daughters have grown.
Yes, 1 tin of formula, a polite child takes in 4 days.
Yes.
The boys who can eat will do it in 3 days. So it costs us at least 300 on formula alone per baby every day. There have been months when we have very many little babies where our cost of formula alone is 500,000 and above.
Wow.
Formula alone. When it comes to medical, you and I know, we move from a regular issue to ICU, the picture changes in days. Where it was 0 and ICU costs, within 2 days you are looking at hundreds of thousands, and that bill continues.
What do you do in a situation like this, where your coffers don't have the money?
Now here's a beautiful partnership, especially in Nairobi. After COVID, and I think with what happened with COVID, we have two main ICUs for babies in Nairobi. Kenyatta, which is an excellent one, but almost always full.
Yes.
Then you have Gertrude's. Gertrude's, you need to put down a deposit of at least 400K or so.
One in Muthaiga?
Yes, for ICU, as is required in many different ICUs, okay? And Coptic came up now with ICU spaces now for babies. And I think that was either during COVID or because before that they didn't. Now, Coptic Hospital has been an amazing partner. Coptic allows any baby from New Life in need of ICU care, they admit even without deposit. The baby is cared for, even if it's a week, 2 weeks, 2 months. The baby is discharged, and then we sit down and come up with a payment plan. That has removed so much weight from us. Because before, you just move. We've had debt collectors come, we've had all those things, but now that just removes that pressure when we know we can do that. We have Nairobi, St. Mary's, again the St. Mary's. They started a kindergarten, I think for the first time last year, or was it this year?
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yes. So they usually bring their high schoolers to volunteer at New Life once in a while. So we asked them, would you consider giving us maybe 1 scholarship for the older toddlers? They went, talked, and gave us 4. All we needed to do is buy uniform. So imagine in Kilimani, the St. Mary's van comes into New Life every morning, picks our kids, takes them to school, they are fed everything, the van brings them back.
Okay.
Imagine what our neighbors think. And these people say they need help. And they take their kids to St. Mary's. But you see, people don't ask.
Yes.
So there are some of those individual people who've really blessed us. Our kids have not worn new clothes unless they are donated once in a while. We have been so used to hand-me-downs. And then Woolworths checked in, I think 2 years now, where after all their sales and everything, they will donate some of their things. And so babies, hey, nowadays, they can rock in with some nice things, you know. So again, it's what we ask companies, and I would ask even here, what is it you produce? So there are companies that make washing detergent, okay? Can you donate even for a year? There are companies that do even toilet paper. We use a lot of toilet paper. You have visitors coming, and can that company just donate for a year? There are companies that do uji flour for porridge. Would you consider donating whatever your produce is just for that time, even for, and we'll give you the reports. If you want to do spot checks on us, we're always saying we are an open organization. We have our audits done every year, the credible organization, KKCO, and we have nothing to hide. Integrity is one of our values as an organization, not just in name, but even in what we do on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let's take a quick break. We're coming back to hear your adoption story.